I see, I hear, I feel, I taste spirit. So taste, when I'm working on a case with the police, if there's been a murder, I might taste blood in the back of my throat. Smelling, I can smell, if it's lavender or other things. So I smell perfumes and I can tell my client, oh, she wore that type of perfume. I can hear things. I see things and I have a knowing. So I sense how that individual is.
My next guest, Anne Bayford, is a psychic medium, an intuitive holistic therapist, as well as a trance channeler, who joins us today to talk about her near-death experiences. Now, Anne was a psychic since she was a young child, all the way up until about the age of 13. However, she lost touch of her abilities, and it wasn't until she had her first near-death experience that she was awoken to her true self. And she now uses these abilities that she's been awoken to in order to help many. And if you stick right through till the end of this video, Anne has agreed to do a channeled message with me, answering questions from me to her guides. So enough said, let's just start the video.
My name is Anne Bayford. I've had 3 near-death experiences and a number of out-of-body experiences too. When I look back, it all makes sense now, going back through history of why I had those near-death experiences in the first place. It was real sort of waking me up. My first one happened 2002 in March. I think it was about the 11th of March. And I remember it was in the afternoon. I was leaving work. Now, at that time, I was having relationship troubles, in a sense of I was very unhappy in my relationship with my partner, and I had 2 young children. So one was 5 and one was 7. And I remember at the time so clearly. When I talk about it now, it sort of takes me back to it. And I remember at the time that I was unhappy, and I kept on reaching out, and I didn't know who I was reaching out, but I kept on reaching out, sort of saying, I just need some help. And I didn't know if I believed in God, the universe. I had no idea at that time. As a child, I'd had experiences of seeing spirit, and I didn't find out till later on that actually on my mum's side of the family there are a couple of psychic mediums, and on my dad's side of the family too. So it's quite unusual to have 2 family members, different families having that going on. So actually, I was the ingredients, the recipe to become a psychic medium, I didn't even know. So as a child, I sort of pushed that to one side because I wasn't told as a child, and I thought I was going crazy by what I saw, what I heard. So moving forward to 2002, I remember feeling really unhappy, and I was getting ready to leave work. I was in the office. I was working in central London, and I knew I had to sort of send off some paperwork, an envelope. I had to post that for a client because the job that I was involved in, a project coordinator for a charity for the elderly. I loved my job, and I knew that I felt of service. But I remember that day I was thinking I need to leave, and I was looking at the time, and as any busy mother of children and thinking I had to get to pick them up from school, I was really conscious of the time. So I think it was about 20 past 2. I left the office, I remember saying goodbye to everybody. I walked to the corner of the road, and I thought, if the traffic stops at pedestrian crossing, I'm going to cross, or I'm going to post this letter somewhere else later on. And something happened. I saw somebody pressing the button, and I was like, oh, okay, so the crossing is going to be okay to stop in a minute, like traffic, and I can cross. And I remember I had the letter in my hand. I always wondered what happened to that letter, actually, all those years ago. I had the letter in my hand. I was walking across, and there was 3 or 4 people that I remember that were walking either side of me. This is just the weirdest thing, because I often look back, because it's like, why didn't they get knocked down by this van? So we got to the middle central part of this road, and I remember standing there, and it was green mass. I mean, you could cross the road, but something happened, and I've learned this now, that time is so different on planet Earth compared to where it is spiritually, and energetically, in the soul essence and stuff. And it was almost like slow motion, and I was unaware then of where these other people were, where they're standing by my side. They must have just walked across, and I heard my nan's voice. And my nan died when I was about 15, so a very long time ago, because I was about 37 or something like that, in my 30s when the accident happened. And I remember a voice, and I could hear it saying to me, everything's going to be okay. And I heard the voice, and then I thought to myself, but the voice sounded familiar. It doesn't make sense. The voice, it reminded me of my nan's voice, and my nan took care of me when there was trouble times when I was a kid. Mum and dad were divorcing. I used to stay with my nan, my grandfather as well, and it was the most strangest experience, and I felt very warm, and it was a really cold day in England, really bitter cold, and so that's what I heard. Everything's going to be okay. I felt very warm. I didn't feel anything else for a long time after that. That's when I must have put my foot down and started to cross the road. And that's when the van, they later found out, drove 40 miles per hour, which is quite high speed. He should have slowed down. There was other traffic there. And he went inside on a bus lane. So he should not have entered into the bus lane, and he drove straight through me. It was a red light to stop the vehicles. Somebody later said that the person was on their mobile phone, which of course at that time was illegal. So he must have got distracted and drove straight through me. Now, there's so many levels to this. So when I did come around, and I'll go through what happened, but it was what happened. When I did come through afterwards, physically, my physical human self could hear this, and I'd love to find this guy. There was a man's voice I could hear. So physically there, he was kneeling down. I could hear this man's voice talking to me. And that actually helped me to come through quite a lot, actually. I was like, oh, okay. I was listening to this man's voice. Complete stranger had stopped on the pedestrian crossing to help. Now, the bit in the middle is the weirdest bit. So I'm trained as a counsellor going back many, many years ago and believe in science. And when I'd heard, previously all those years ago about people having near-death experiences and out-body experiences, I was like, yeah, the chemicals in the brain, this is what happens, and this is probably where they think they're going, it's an illusion. And I sort of poo-hooed it. And I was like, no, I don't know if I believe in it or not, but I wouldn't call anyone a liar, but just wasn't too sure. But when it actually happened to me, I understand. And that's what I realized in my life. A lot of dramas have happened and played out in my life. And I say this to my clients, they all play out to teach us something. And for me, like being a master number, as I know from my numerologist, I'm a 22 stroke and everything else, and a 7, that I know that I'm here for a purpose. And I understand, and I look back at that situation, it was trying to wake me up to saying, hey, stop. You need to stop living your life the way you're living it. And we're trying to show there's another way of life. So when it happened, I didn't feel the van driving through me. All I know is, and again, there's so many levels to this, that there was part of me that, it was really weird. I didn't know it was my physical body. All I know was I was out of my body. And the only reason I knew I was out of my body, and I didn't even know it was my body at the time, was that I was looking down at this blob on the ground. It was this human vessel, this human body. And I call it a vessel now, because I'm more mindful of the fact that our soul can go backwards and forwards, and the human being is a vessel. But I didn't know at the time, it was myself laying on the ground. And I only later found that out, and I'll go through it. All I know is I could see something on the road. I was looking around, there was loads of pedestrians, loads of people that were like shocked. You could see it in their faces. And I could really feel that feeling of them feeling scared or what to do. They were panic mode. Now, as a natural empath, I could pick up on people before the accident, but this was something on a higher level. This is crazy. It was almost like I was transported into each of their bodies, and I could feel their energy. It was so strange. And so I could see their faces, and like there was shock. And I saw a family member that had been passing by. We'd had a family business nearby, and he was my ex-partner's uncle, and he was standing there and he was looking on, and he looked shocked. And all I remember thinking, again, I didn't know it was me, but all I remember thinking, I looked and went, why is Peter looking so sad? Well, why is he so upset? What's going on? But I didn't think it was anything to me at all. I did not have this connection to my human vessel. And there were lots of people running through the shops, and there was a lady from a hairdresser's. I could see her. She was running, and she had a rolled up towel, and she's going, put this under her head, put this under her head. And people going, no, don't touch her, don't touch her. There were so many people that were scared, and obviously someone had called the ambulance and everything else. And all I know then, next minute, I was sort of transported into this big truck. Some guy was driving this truck, a complete stranger. And I remember I was sitting inside his cabin. He was on the opposite side of the road, and all the traffic had been stopped. And he was sort of not very happy, shall I say, that he was caught in traffic jam when he had to get somewhere else. So he's talking to his boss or saying some woman, blah, blah, blah. And it was very colourful, his sort of what he was saying, his language. And I remember I was sort of sitting next to him and I could hear him, and I heard the radio in the background, Capital Radio. And they were saying there'd been a big accident, Essex Road in Islington, in central London, and there's going to be an air ambulance. So a helicopter was going to arrive to, whatever, at that time. And I was like, oh. And I still didn't realize that was because my physical self was flat out on the road, dead at that particular time. And all I know is that I didn't feel that my name was Anne. It was the strangest feeling. I just felt it was a soul feeling. My soul had just, sat in this cabin with this complete stranger, and I was listening. He couldn't see me, but I was just there. And so it's a bit like something you see in the movies. It's really strange. But I wasn't thinking at the time. I'm thinking back of it now. And then I ended up sort of moving around. And then on another level, because it's all happening multiple levels at the same time, on the other level, the feeling was really profound. I just felt very safe, very warm. And it felt very light, bright, not hurting my eyes, but it was this brilliant white light, but not exactly white. It was the strangest thing. And I remember being somewhere else and feeling very warm and feeling very protective, very cared for. Felt the feeling of my nan being there with me. And I remember, as I'm talking about, I'm taking myself, transform myself right there now. As I remember, it was like an oval shape. I wouldn't say building because I can't see the walls, but it felt like an oval shape of some sort, where there was many books, and there was scrolls, and there was jars and everything. And I didn't understand what that actually meant. I just remembered being there and feeling that I'm here for a reason. I'm here to be told something. There is something I need to know. That's the overwhelming feeling that I felt. And as I'm there, I remember there were it's really strange. There were bookshelves and shelving. And I remember there was a being. I cannot explain them as a being because it's hard to describe what they look like. I remember I looked at them and didn't see any feet, and they were gliding. And I remember thinking to myself, well, where's their feet? And it was as if they had a cloak on or something. It wasn't like fashion we would wear, trousers, suit, jacket, nothing. It was like a cloak they were wearing. Not godly, nothing like that, but it was just a cloak, and it was very swaying. I remember an essence of them. It was really strange. And I remember they were pulling out things from shelves, and I remember they had a scroll they pulled out and they unraveled it and showed me. Now I've been shown many more of these because the work that I do now, Hall of Souls, I was told it was then. And I also am told I work within the whole Hall of Souls with Akashic Records, also known. And it was the scrolls of what was going on in each individual human being. And I remember it being rolled out. And I remember I was told at times, I've done some more work going back on it, that it's a blueprint of our lives and a blueprint of the human life. So you looked at past lives I'd been on, my journeys, and each time my soul had passed over, it was talking to me about my journey, where I was at, what needed to be completed, the work that I still needed to do, the lessons, the teachings. But at that time I wasn't 100% sure. All I know is it unfolded the scroll, and I was like, okay, I unrolled the scroll. And then it flipped back in, and I remember it was put into a long tubing and put onto a shelving system. And then next to it, the shelves would suck themselves back or go back somewhere. It was just would then go disappear. Then I remember really clearly there was a massive book that opened up, and as it opened up, every single page had something that was shown to me. It was almost not cartoony, you would open up the book and then there was visions and images, and I could hear sound from what they were showing me. And again, this was where I'd been, what I'm doing, where I'm to go. It just felt there was a real strong knowing of the reason I was there was because I was praying a lot beforehand, saying I needed some help and whatever, and they were listening to me as a human being. So I remember standing there, and again, I didn't feel my feet. It was almost like gliding sort of thing. I was there, but I felt this amazing calmness. And I remember I was there. It was like being part of a Doctor Who or a Star Trek film, that so many beings from so many different universes or places on the planet, or even not on the planet, elsewhere in the universe or galaxies, were walking by or gliding by me while I was standing there. And it's so strong. I just felt at the time, and I battled with this once I came back into my body, which I'll go through, but it felt as if I didn't want to leave. I felt that I was home. It felt that I felt at home. I felt I've come back home. It's almost like putting the key in the front door of your home and walking in, you go, oh, after hard that sort of feeling. And that's how I felt there. I was like, oh. And I didn't feel troubled. I didn't feel anything at all. But as it was happening, it was almost as if I was then being asked a question. And I remember very clearly, I was saying, it was funny, this is how I work as a medium now, and I realize this, and how I work with my angels as an angel practitioner now. I would ask the question, I asked the question as in, my question was going to be, and what's going to happen to Rebecca and Nathan, because they were 5 years old and 7 years old. I was on my way to pick them up from school. I had to get the train to go pick them up. I was running late, and I was like, oh my God, what about my children? It was started, I was in and out of like, oh my God, the human reality, and then where I was, it kept coming backwards and forwards to me. And before I could answer before I could finish my question, they came straight in and said, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay. And as a medium, when I talk to spirit on the other side, or my guides or whatever, I don't always get time to finish my sentence, because they know. So they work within the sentences or the lines. So when we're writing down a sentence or something, they're in between the top part of it and below it. They're getting really quick before we can write the second sentence. So their time span and timing is so different. And I realize that now for the work that I do. And I've adapted, and I know this so well now. So they would say, everything's going to be okay, everything's going to be okay. And it wasn't like, I didn't feel like I had a decision whether to go back or to stay where I was in the Hall of Souls. I really felt that it was more about waking me up, really making me aware of where I've been, what's to come, and give me some hope as the human, soul going back to the human vessel. And I got the impression, and I know now from the work that I do, a lot of people go to the Hall of Records on souls before they go off, where it's sort of in balance, or they look at what they've learned, what the soul needs to learn, and it's sort of like a little waiting area when to put back in again. So that's the work I do now with clients. But it was very much, I felt I was held in this safe place now. And it made sense that they actually showed me this, so that the work that I do now makes it easier with clients as well. So that was happening on another level, where I felt very safe, very calm, like every answer to every question I wanted would have been there. And so that's happening then. And the physical self, the physical human body, was laying on the ground. And while this was happening, there's now like an audience of people, like spectators, looking on and going at what's going on. Somebody had obviously Uncle Peter, which was my ex-partner's uncle, knew it was me. So he then called where my partner was working, and he ran down the road with his mom. They work in a local shop. And I remember out of body, I could see my ex-partner running down the road or walking faster, and his feet pounding on the ground. I could see his face, and he looked quite grey, and he did look like he was in shock. I don't remember seeing my mother-in-law, but I remember seeing him out of body wise. I saw him, and all I know is I was not in my physical body. And then all I know is that I could see him placing his hand on my head. And as he was stroking it, it was very much of, I was surprised actually what I heard from him, because internally I heard him saying, how am I going to cope looking after Rebecca and Nathan? And I was like, oh, okay, I'm connected to this. And I was almost like on a soul level, I was connecting, I could feel it. I felt some sadness from him, but I also felt the worry of what he was going to do looking after our children. And I could feel that through his hand internally with a human that was laying on the ground. Then the ambulance arrived, and paramedics saw the paramedic bike arrive. The paramedic got off, and it was parked further down. This is important, because later on I was saying to the police and going through with the counselling with my post-traumatic stress, that if this all hadn't happened to me, how did I know the paramedic had parked his bike down the road? Anyway, so he got off the bike, he came over, and I remember he was checking me, and then the ambulance arrived at the same time. And then the ambulance crew got out, and they were cutting open my coat. but I wasn't in my body because they were apologizing. I could hear, and I later found out now I've done some work in a hospice, like hearing's the last thing to leave the human vessel sort of thing when you're passing over. And I remember I could hear, so it's almost as if that I was out of my body, could see what was going on, but there's a human I could hear. So there was the connection on the soul level, like a soul cord. And they were saying, sorry, we have to cut your coat open. It was very expensive. I'm really sorry. It was making me laugh. Out of body, Anne was laughing, and the human there was like, I was totally out, I was dead. Well, yeah, near death. And then they were near me, and I didn't feel any pain in my physical body at all, no physical pain. And I say this to my clients who are on the verge of passing, that you will not have that pain. You do not die with the pain. It's like taken away. It's something totally different. Had no pain at all. And then they electric paddled my chest, shocked my heart back into working. And as they did that, my vessel, not my vessel, my soul, I could feel her whizzing, her, no gender at all at the time, to be honest. I could feel my soul whizzing around like a water slide and ready to go straight down. And I remember like, oh, and I'm going. And that was it. It was like, it's not like, oh, bye, see you later. It was just like, it was like, oh, I'm going. And then boom, straight back into my body. And this tube of white light was going down. I was crazy. And as I entered into my human vessel with the electric paddle, I went whoop, back into my body, and then I felt all the pain. And I was choking, I was crying, I was shaking because of the shock of the physical self. And then I had found out the injuries on my foot, 7 breaks in my foot. My ankle was torn off, ripped, the skin and bones. You didn't see it sort of hanging separately, but it's there. My knee was broken. I'd broken my hip. My spleen was damaged. My gallbladder was damaged. My kidneys, internal bleeding. So it was like 40 miles per hour, and then you double or triple the shock of the human vessel, and all the organs move about. So of course there was bleeding. Oh, and ribs were fractured and broken on both sides. So I felt the pain and give me gas and air and morphine and everything else, put me into the ambulance. And I remember as we're going in the ambulance, I don't remember much of internally being inside the ambulance, but I remember my outer body looking at the top part of the ambulance and seeing the numbers on the top of the ambulance. Helicopters can look down and see the numbers normally on an ambulance or a police car. When I entered into the hospital, I remember going into the A&E, I think shock trauma bit, I'm not sure, I can't remember what it's called now. And I remember not my physical human self laying down, but out of body, I could see there was a crash team that's working on my legs, my middle part and my top part. I could feel the frantic within the staff. I could feel their energy. I was looking down at myself, and I think there was one point where I could see them cutting open my bra, and I literally was so naked on this table, but my physical self wasn't embarrassed because I physically wasn't in it. My outer body, there was no sense of embarrassment because I was not attached to it. It was so different. So not those sort of feelings at all. And I later learned that's very different with the guides that I work with. The way they come through is because I've not had a physical connection and about the senses and human emotions and stuff. So I understand on so many levels now because of my experience. So out of body looking down, human Anne, didn't feel any of that pain at all when they were just cutting into, taking clothes off and stuff. And then I remember waking up and I was in intensive care. And I remember my arms by my side, and my hand occasionally, when we're in and out of sleep, when we're slowly waking up in the morning, you've got that coming back into reality, but plus into dream world. And that's the feeling it felt. I had my hand and I was kept on doing this. And when I did finally wake up after a few days of what was going on, the nurse was by my side, and I said to her, "Where's my nan?" Because a strong feeling that my nan was there. And in reality, of course, my nan had passed over, 15, 20 years earlier, but the presence of my nan had felt she'd been holding my hand. And the nurse, she'd worked with many patients, and she said, this is untypical. It's normal. A lot of patients who have had traumatic experiences on their body often say that they remember feeling a loved one near them. And she said that she now totally believes in that. A lot of medical people do. And I found that out later when I ended up working in the hospital too. So the nurse said, maybe your nan was by your side the whole time in spirit. And so I just held her hand. And so it took me a long time. I got out of hospital. I was disabled for 4 years, 2 years in a wheelchair, 2 years after that in a walking stick. And I couldn't walk. But it was just trying to make sense as the human that I trained in science and as a counsellor to the person then that had this strange experience, trying to make sense. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. Every time later on I was near traffic or I heard cars, it played on my body, and I was in a lot of stress. I had depression quite a lot afterwards, but it was really trying to make sense of everything that happened. And later on, I used to go to church. I remember speaking to my vicar at the time that I'd said to him, this had happened to me. And he said, well, we don't totally believe in all that. And I said, well, where does that leave me? And then that's when later on I discovered the College of Psychic Studies, where I now work as a consultant. At the time, I was just interested if there was another meaning to all this and helping me, my world of trying to make sense. So yeah, it was a long process of just trying to digest information, thinking, am I going crazy? Am I going mad?
Yeah.
So after the experience, some people I've heard that, they feel euphoric and their life has changed. After that experience, I had depression, I was disabled. It took a long time to start walking again and, and looking at life in a different way. And I just started reading more, looking on YouTube, trying to find out if there's anybody else that had a similar experience. And back then, I didn't come across many at all. So it wasn't the competent experience. Now I look back and I'm like, oh, I totally get it. It was a real awakening to sort of say, hey. And my senses came online in a sense of I started becoming more aware of other sights and sounds, and seeing images. And I didn't realize at the time they were spirits. I just thought I was going crazy. But that was that main one.
I'd like to bring you back to the beginning, during the beginning of the NDE. At what point did you realize, oh, I'm dead?
There was no connection at any point. Well, I didn't realize I was dead. I didn't realize I had died. I didn't realize it was me. I was so out of my body that I just was so disconnected, looking down at our body experience, looking down at this physical self. I think what it was is seeing from everybody's reactions of what was going on to this physical vessel body that was laying on the ground, didn't know it was me. I could see people's faces, and it was only literally by having seen an uncle that saw my physical body. I was like, he's so upset, what's going on? I started making some connections, and then seeing my partner running down the road or walking very fast to my body, placing his hand on my head, did I realize, oh, he's upset. Oh, maybe that's me. I didn't even know it was me at all, let alone I was dead. But I was like, oh, there's me. And I think it was really, it wasn't, on a soul level, I didn't realize how I had died. It was literally that when the paramedic had paddled my chest and I came in at such a thump and full speed ahead, I was like, whee, coming back into the body, I realized, oh, I had died. Yeah. So it was really weird. I mean, that's what I mean. The process of afterwards digesting everything that had happened to me, it was then looking back on reflection that, oh, I actually did die. Oh, I did have an out-of-body experience. That's what an out-of-body experience is. I could see everything around me. I could see the cars, I could see the shops, I could see everything. I can hear everything. I wouldn't have known what an out-of-body experience was. I mean, I used to astral projection and traveling when I was a child all the time, and I just thought that was dreams and lucid dreaming. I didn't realize now until I became a consultant actually what had happened to me as a child. This was those experiences, because no one had explained it to me at all. And I think there's so many humans that are having so many experiences, but they don't understand what they are, and no one's explained it to them. So it's like, and then the human brain comes in and rationalizes everything. But yeah, I didn't know where I was. I was dead. I didn't know I was in the Hall of Souls. I was told I was in the Hall of Souls. I mean, what's that? I had no idea. I hadn't heard of it before. Now I'm used to it being called Akashic Records, but I didn't know it was the Hall of Souls. I didn't know I was talking to angels and beings. I had no idea. And that's why it took me a long time to recover after that accident, about a good 4 years, physically and mentally. I was backwards and forwards in hospital having certain operations done. So yeah, I didn't know. But that is brilliant. That's amazing. Just think of that, how amazing that is. So when we pass over onto the other side, there's no pain. Your body does not feel any pain. Your soul is not feeling any pain. Your soul leaves. Your soul is, because of the work I did as a psychic medium, I know that to be true. And I know from my own experience, I was greeted. My nan was waiting for me. My nan was there ready to take me forward. You know, she was there. Okay, I was meant to die, exactly in the sense of die forever, but she was guiding me. So I know from a physical point of view, from here now to human, there is someone waiting for you on the other side. And I have this a lot with clients that come to me. Was there someone waiting for my auntie? Was there someone waiting for my husband? And each time I check in with them, I'm like, because I don't want to flippantly say, oh yes, because I know my experience. I check in. Oh yeah, that auntie was waiting for them, or this person's waiting for them, or that soul was waiting for them. So you don't experience pain on the other side at all. You know, it's, for me, it felt very loving, and I've heard from other people who've had some similar experiences, a loving, warm, supported environment. There's nothing to fear. But yet in our world that we create, we feel that we have to be scared because it's the unknown. It's an adventure for the soul. So yeah, I didn't know I was dead, because that was not what my soul felt. There was a disconnection. Yeah.
And another thing I wanted to bring up, so you mentioned that you were already a psychic at a young age. You had these abilities at a young age. I wanted to talk about, at what point did you notice that it stopped, or why did it stop, do you think? And I'll get to the next question after this.
Oh, I love that. So as a child, I remember there was a lot going on as a child, but my mum, later on, I spoke to my mum just to keep going back, just to process everything. My mum said, she always said, your cot that used to lay in, your crib that used to rock all the time, but no one's around you to rock it. And I'm like, what does that mean? And she said, Anne, I could see a light around your cot from the moment you were born. A light was around your cot. I actually saw, she saw her nan, which would have been my great nan. I'm like, huh? So I was like, I don't understand. I was never explained at all. And I was like, oh, okay. And I remember, you know, that I can remember being a baby in nappies even. I remember playing with this soft toy. My mum used to say to me, you cannot remember that. You was probably about 9 or 10 months old. Mum, I remember the toy. I gave her great details. As a baby, I remember. I even remembered my mum had put a terry nappy, so Italian nappy on me, and pricked my belly with the safety pin. She was, but you can't. But I do remember. I remember so many stages of my babyhood and my childhood. And I remember that even my sister, and I don't think she likes to admit this, but my sister said that she used to play a game of cards with somebody in the corner of our room, but there was nobody there that would play. So she was doing that. So, you know, children, when people think they're an imaginary friend, it has the human, we're told, oh, if you can't see it, don't believe in it. But as children, we're not told that. As children, we just play in our imaginary world. And I remember, you know, that I used to see so many people just passing by and would just wave to me in my living room and just go by and just walk through. And you're like, huh? And I remember a story where mum had said that one night she was working late. She looked through the letterbox. She didn't want to ring the bell to wake us children up because she's a single mum bringing up 3 kids on her own. She looked through the little letterbox and she said she thought she saw my brother stand at the top of the stairs, and she called out to him. And instead, he came through the door to the living room. So who was that boy at the top of the stairs? So kept on seeing spirit, kept on being aware, and I kept on hearing animals as well all the time, insects. I was talking to insects and animals. No one has said you're a child, or, you know, humans don't hear animals. It was only later on when, you know, I started going to school, and I remember bringing stuff up to other children, and children would say, oh, you're crazy, you're mad. And this was a lot later on. I think this was when I was going into my teens, and it was a troubled time then. Primary age, you know, young age, fine. But when I hit about 11, 12, 13, things started changing, becoming more aware that the world would see you as a crazy person. I remember my mum saying to me at the time, I told her things I was seeing, and I could hear animals talking to me and communicating with me. She said, people are going to lock you up. They're going to think that you're mental, you're crazy. They're going to lock you up in a crazy home. And I was like, oh my God. And so it was the pressure of thinking that I was different. And I didn't realize I was different till that time. So going into my teens, 11, 12, I sort of started feeling different from the other children and started pulling back a little bit. And then I remember when my mum was married to my stepdad, we lived somewhere else. And it was quite a violent marriage and a relationship. So we had a real dysfunctional family, very toxic. He used to be domestic violence and stuff. And I remember as a teenager that I really didn't want to be there. And I remember kept doing this to my head, like I didn't want to hear the arguments, and it was too much. And I'd shut down my abilities because I was told by my mum, you're going to be a crazy person. So I had, but what happened was, because of the violence that was going on, I attracted poltergeists to the actual flat we were living in. So we had literally, there were pictures that were coming off the wall and not just sliding down the wall, they were flying across the wall and smashing onto the floor. Cups were banging off doors, electricity cutting out. Because I was so unhappy, I was attracting energy, and that can happen with teenagers, and work that I do now, I'm aware of it. And so as a teenager, it was real troubled times, and I was like, I had to shut down. And there was one point I was really suicidal as a teenager. And I mean, I openly admit this, that I was really suicidal. And it was, I was in conflict, hearing chains and screaming that were from the other side. I'd attracted poltergeists, witnessing all this violence. I didn't feel happy in my home environment. There was a lot of violence going on. And I remember a time where I was so suicidal. And I remember in the end, my GP, my doctor had said, right, you need to go to the hospital. Went to the hospital. And then they decided to put me in a psychiatric hospital for a while because I was hearing voices. And they said I could be schizophrenic. And then it started making me think later on, as a counsellor, like how many people might have been locked up because they said they may not have mental health issues. They may not be schizophrenic. What if they are psychic mediums and they don't even realise it? So I remember being there for a couple of days and I was like, I am not crazy. Why am I here? I was a teenager. And I remember being there and I just like, how do I get myself out of here? And then I heard a voice saying, you have to pretend you don't hear us anymore. And I'm like, oh my God, am I going crazy? And it really, like, because humans, adults had said to me, you're going crazy, you need to stop, whatever. And at the time I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a try. I mean, I don't want to take all this medication they're giving to me. I don't believe I'm crazy. So I started saying I'm okay, and I blocked it out. And then after the episode of being in the hospital, it scared me so much, I blocked it out. I was like, no, I don't want to hear anymore. And it was until the accident happened. So it must have been a good 10, 12 years after that then the accident happened. It was like, okay, it's time for you to, us to tune you back in and you to be aware that we do exist. It's not your imagination. You're not going crazy.
That brings me to my next question, actually. And what I was going to say is, so you saw a blueprint of your life, sort of like a life review of what you've done, where you're at now, where you have left. And it's like, and you also said that you were awakened during this NDE. So do you think that this NDE was a part of your blueprint, as if to say, you need to remember, hey, you have work to do?
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with you on that this blueprint was really like my soul on so many levels. I mean, I trained now, I'm a past life practitioner. I trained out in America with Brian Wise, who wrote all the books like Past Lives, Many Masters, and everything else. There's so many books he's wrote. I can't remember the title, but I trained with him out in America, and we stayed in contact for some time afterwards because he was so fascinated, because he was going to write some stuff about a book or so. But that was it was an amazing experience. But it really was, I was sort of shown on so many of my last lives, what had happened. And it's funny, some of my past lives are catching up with me now as well. They're overlapping, because we don't just live in this dimension. There's other dimensions, other realities, whatever. It's so complex, but this isn't just it. So yeah, I was sort of shown on so many levels, and it wasn't like flat. When they opened up the scroll, it sort of, there were lines and paths that sort of rose up off this, not sheet of paper, because it didn't feel like a sheet of paper at all, but this scroll, this sort of lifted up. Okay, thank you. I just heard, sorry, they're coming in. We have, as a soul, there's so many possibilities. We have the free will to choose. Like, we have options in, whether to go down that pathway or that job or that boyfriend or that whatever it is. And from our free will to some degree of what we might choose, then that's how life maps itself out. Now, does that mean that our destiny changes? It just might mean it goes off course, or it's slightly different timing. There's so many variants that, as I say, it's not flat. There's so, like our personalities, where we are, you know, how I might be with my mum, I might be very different the way I act with my sister, or with a friend, or with a colleague, or with a client. There's so many sides to us, and it's very much about, there are so many sides to our lives that we live as a soul on human plane as we are right now. And it really felt that I'd got stuck in a dysfunctional relationship myself, and I was, from a psychological point of view, and as a therapist that I am trained in, you know, I could see why I was repeating similar patterns to my mother, because I'd only experienced that through my mother and witnessed her life, and through that behavior. I was living a very similar lifestyle to her, had 2 children, was unhappy, I was putting up with, you know, I didn't have domestic violence, nothing like that at all, but very manipulative with the mind. And as a child, I'd been brought up in that environment, you know, with my stepdad, so it was familiar and similar to me, so I stayed in that relationship. So that's the psychological side of us. And really, I should have broken out of that relationship a long time ago, but I continued in that relationship, and only till recently did I come out and do I realize why I was in that relationship, what happened and stuff. So it's so many different levels and layers. But the question that you asked, which was really good, about the fact of, do I feel that this accident was in my blueprint? I feel it was there. If she hadn't, I just heard, if she hadn't woken up at that point, there was this accident planned, so it would wake her up and then set me on this journey. I feel there were numerous times that there were times I could have woken up, but I just I needed something very big to stop me on my track. So I had to go through that.
You know, and it's incredible to me, because so many people that I interview that have had near-death experiences, their whole life changes and they become psychics, intuitives, healers, vibrational healers, like all of these things. Obviously, you're a bit different because you've already been there beforehand and you needed to wake up to it. But like, I just feel like these near-death experiences are so powerful. Another thing I wanted to ask, oh yeah, sorry.
No, there was something you said which is really, really important. It awakens you. So it doesn't mean that it gives you the skills, I don't think personally, because stuff that I've looked at previously, I don't want people thinking that, oh, they need to go and have a near-death experience before they can develop psychically or their life changes, because I am a soul coach as well. What I would like to say is, and what I found from the research I've done, is that we are all gifted as children. We're all psychic to some degree. This is a natural, innate ability in ourselves. But as a human, we are not taught this, or we're told that we're crazy. So for me, I feel every single human to some degree has an ability, especially as a child. But, you know, or they like their imagination, it's all to do with imagination and manifestation. This is what I teach with clients. It's just like, it's child's work, you know, you just, to manifest again, it's just imaginary, and it's the energy around that. The way we are is so different. You know, we produce so much energy internally, but our thought process produces this energy field around us that we attract like for liking. So like with the manifestation, if you want something, you really have to feel that you have it. So you are producing those endorphins in your body, that your organs are getting on board, that you're actually feeling, that you can touch it, you can feel it. And that's with the manifestation thing as well. And with children, every baby, every soul, I just heard, is born with this innate ability to be psychic, but we are told at some point, either through religion or through our family or through our society we live in, this is rubbish because we can't see it, don't believe in it to some degree. So then you block yourself. And then later on, you know, I teach psychic abilities again, it wakens it up. So even just going to a class, you don't have to get knocked down by a car or anything else. Even just going to a class to learn about psychic abilities and to tune in, that can happen too. And, you know, people are receiving signs every single day of their life in the universe, but might not realize that. They might say, oh, that's a coincidence that this happened. I bumped into that person, I was just thinking of them, or I was just this person phoned me because I was thinking of them. It's a coincidence. It's just we need to relabel it, that it's not a coincidence. Your energy, you've picked up on them, you've tuned into them, use your intuition. Like baby, when a baby, I mean, you have a baby, when you have a baby and they come out of the womb, and the couple of days after they're born, they do this sometimes with their hands. They feel like they're still in the womb or something.
Yeah.
This is their innate intuition of wanting to feel safe. They need to feel cuddled and cradled and feel supported. I think we need to retrain or reprogram ourselves to be aware of, working more of an intuition like animals do. They sense there's a fire, they sense there's a storm. Some humans do as well. Walk into a room, they sense there's been an argument. It's not just by physically looking at people's faces. There'll be an atmosphere, energy. So yeah, you don't have to have a near-death experience. That's what I'm trying to say. Just to be able to go into this, your psychic abilities or mediumship, you just explore, work with your own gifts. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's perfect. That actually brings me to my next question. So you teach this, you help us to unlock our potential. How do you, okay, let me start again. So you help us to unlock our potential. How do we know what our abilities are? Because I would guess that everyone has different abilities. How do we, or how could you teach us or give us an example to be aware of these abilities and work on them?
That's a brilliant question. Now okay, this is vast. Yeah, I do teach, beginners, but I also on so many different levels. So it was just like we're saying, that things aren't coincidental, that things happen all the time around us, but we've turned ourselves off or switched ourselves off. So I always, I trained in mindfulness as well, but there's so many, modalities I've trained in because of my journey I've been on and trying to make sense of my world. Now, for me, and for my students, it's about being aware of how you're feeling, what's going on internally within you, what's happening in your daily life, and what are you sending out to the world. It always begins with yourself. Thank you. I just said, I know this. It always begins with yourself. Where are you at in your life? What's going on for you? And you can, on reflection, look back at your soul journey, your life journey. What has led you to this moment in time? What are the events that's made you appear where you are right now? And to look at that. And some people might say, well, this happened to me, such and such. I was just lucky. Was you just lucky? Or was actually a guardian angel was there, but you don't want to call it guardian angel? Or did you use your intuition, which you don't want to call it that because you don't know it's called that? Because we've got lots of names and terminologies now, but some people who aren't in this world of, you talk to somebody that's very logical minded, and I have like lawyers and doctors, and I work with the police. Some of the terminology, I have to rephrase it. It's the same thing, but I'm just using different terminology with them. So, I'd speak to a copper that is looking, working on a murder case, or a detective, and he'll say, my gut instinct, he wouldn't think he's psychic or intuitive because he doesn't use those terminology, but he said, my gut instinct made me think this person, or his experience, he'd say that made me believe this, blah, blah, blah. And everyone's around going, well, there'll be no evidence for you to look at that, but my gut instinct told me that. For him, it's called gut instinct. For me, I call it your intuition told you that. So terminology is very different, depending on what world you come from. So I, as a teacher, I always teach people to be aware of who they are, their body space, where they've come from, what, your life has been, where has it led you to right now, and to reflect on some of that. And then what I do is then I mean, there's so many different methods, and I've trained at the Arthur Findlay College, also as well, Stansted Halls, and that's world renowned as well. I mean, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle set up that institute and the College of Psychic Studies. So Arthur Conan Doyle wrote Sherlock Holmes, and also had some Americans that were invested in building these organizations back in Victorian times, because they were aware that, people are becoming more aware through the wars and everything, that they're hearing, seeing things now, that loved ones have passed on a message, but how could they've died, whatever. So, this is all going on and going off. Anyway, so I would then say, what I teach my clients is then a shape or form to go into some type of meditation, sort of a mindful meditation, and to be aware of opening up their energy, be aware of how they're feeling, and to label their senses. So if you're out and about, I feel sad, or I feel happy, or what's going on around you, what's the interaction with the outside world, how's it making you feel, what's your senses, what are you picking up? And it's like, we do this with children. We teach them, oh, maybe you're feeling sad, or could this be that, you're feeling happy? And then there's some parents that say, oh, that's just because you are feeling sad. So we've got to be mindful of what we say. And so I would say, go to your feelings. What are you feeling in certain situations? Start doing some shape and form of meditation so you can go in instead of like going out to external world of your mind focusing on the bills and you've got to do this and you've got to go pick up the washing or the car's got to go into the garage. That's the external world. And through the meditation, it's a practice of coming in. How am I feeling? Being mindful, washing your teeth. Just stay with brushing your teeth, not to allow your mind to go off somewhere else. The more that you do this, the more that you practice this, you start to become aware of your energy. And then when something happens externally around you, like a picture falls off the wall, there's no reason for it. Or, it might be that you feel a little chill on your face, but there's no windows open. It won't, instead of like saying, oh no, there's just a coincidence, whether it's like, okay, let's have a look at that. What could that be? And then invite, you want to, I teach my students to have guides and gatekeepers to be by their side to help them, to help them to move forward with this. When I'm working as a psychic medium, when I ask loved ones to step forward from the other side, literally, this is how it looks for me. I have my guides who are my like runners on a film set and my extras. And I go, you can let them in now. And then I have like a revolving door, really flashy gold brass doorway, circular, so they have to walk through it like you get in a really posh, fancy hotel. And my guides go over to a waiting area on the other side. And we might have a grandma there because they know that I'm going to see their great granddaughter here and she's sitting in a really plush chair. There might be somebody here who's grandfather, or it might be a baby that's waiting because of who I'm seeing in a day. I might see up to 7 clients in a day. So they get a message that, oh, Anne's working today. She's seeing blah, 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 these people. Let's call the relatives, the friends in. A notice goes out. Souls come into this waiting area. My guides call them out like on a flip chart sort of thing. Okay, we have such and such. Who would like to come through, pass the message? And literally, it's like a revolving door. One comes through and I can feel them and I have their personality and I tell them. But I've developed that through knowing what is my energy to separate it from, I can feel their auntie. She might have felt in a different way. She's quite a woman that was up straight in her life. She was a teacher, she used to have these rimmed glasses. So I can start identifying that this is not my energy, it's not how I feel, this is a loved one or somebody else. Yeah. So that's what I teach my students, to identify your energy in who you are. And then by doing that, you can start sensing what's going on. And there's a little exercise when, I teach this to my students. If you get on transport, you're on a bus or on a train and you're in a happy mood and everything's going fine and there's no reason to be grumpy and you're really feeling that you're okay, you get onto the train or the bus or whatever it is, you sit down. Now, we all carry our energy with you. So energy from our organs, so that's the physiology. So, if we're feeling happy, we've got all these happy chemicals running around in our body. We sort of then are going to pump out happiness. If we're stressed, there'll be the stress, all the cortisone and all the other chemicals, and that affects your organs. That's why we get a lot of terminal illnesses or, get run down, immunity problems, because physically, the physiology of the body is because you're going through stress. So this is all energy. We're oozing our energy. We're porous. Okay, we know we're porous, our skin is. So we're oozing out this energy. So why would we not have an auric field around us? That's what we call it. Somebody else would call it something else. So the energy of the individual sitting on the chair, if they're in a bad mood or they're going through some trauma or sadness, there is this weeping of like energy that they leave upon the seat. So you're happy, jolly, you get on the bus, they've got off the bus, you sit down in their chair and suddenly you're like, oh, I feel so crappy. I don't know why I feel so crappy. But some people aren't even aware of it, that they feel crappy all of a sudden, and then they have a really bad day. It's the energy residue. So with my students, I teach them, when you get on the bus, pretend you can see some dust if you're worried what other people might think, and you just sweep away, you're clearing away the old energy of the other person, and you take a seat. And then you'll sit in your own energy space.
All right, so I wanted to bring up your second NDE, if you'd like to share that with us.
Yeah, so my near-death experience happened in 2013. for years I had been told I was asthmatic, didn't know I had a lung condition, medication wasn't working, I was on steroids, inhalers and everything, and I always was ill. I had like up to 7 chest infections in a year. I was always hospitalized, and yeah, I was in a really bad place. And I remember my second near-death experience. It was a bit of a strange one. So by this time, I was already starting to find out more research, more about, you know, psychic abilities and the other side of life. And I was interested in tarot. I was interested in crystals. I was exploring for some time, reading all these books, and I still couldn't get my head around angels. And I was like, I don't know if I really believe them again. And yeah, I was still questioning it. And I am one of those that, because I like science as well, I like to sort of, you know, bridge the gap and just work out, you know, if what do I feel, what's the evidence for this. And yeah, I remember the day this happened. I was feeling really unwell. I'd had a chest infection, and I remember my chest feeling really tight. And with asthma and other people that might have asthma, so every time you breathe in with chest infection, asthma, it feels as if it's going tighter and tighter. So it feels as if you've got a belt wrapped around your rib cage, and it just gets getting pulled tighter and tighter. And I just couldn't breathe. And I remember I was in my daughter's bedroom, and there was a sofa in her bedroom, and I was sitting there, and we just moved into our other home that we had. And I was sitting there on the sofa, and I just like, I cannot breathe. I cannot breathe at all. And I turned around, and I don't know who I was saying it to, but I was like, in my head, I was like, I just need help, please help. And I remember it really clearly. I just felt so alone, so abandoned. I just needed help. And whether I was shouting out to God, the universe, whatever, I don't know at the time. I was just like, I just need help. I couldn't breathe, couldn't verbalize it because I couldn't breathe. But I just remember feeling it so much. And I just like, I'm going to die. And I was scared. Even though I'd had my first experience, I was scared because I felt I hadn't completed what I needed completed. I felt that I didn't want to go. It wasn't my time. That's all I kept on being told in my mind. It wasn't my time. And I was there. And then suddenly I had this massive thump, and I didn't understand. It felt as if the ceiling had fallen in. It was just so loud. And my daughter was downstairs, and I just had this feeling like, why did she not hear this? Just this really huge thump. And I was just sitting with it, and I was like, oh my God. I remember closing my eyes at the time. I was like, oh my God, there's something by my side. And after being a teenager and experienced poltergeist, I was really scared, didn't know what to experience. And I remember turning my eyes to the side, and I remember I felt that I didn't need to turn my whole head around to fully experience it, but I had my head to the side, and at the corner of my side, it was crazy. Even now when I think about it, it was like a large stone statue. It felt, the presence was huge. It was like 30 foot tall, so tall, this presence. And he was kneeling down. And at the time I heard, my name is Archangel Michael. And I was like, oh, no way. I'm going mad. Lack of oxygen, going crazy. Way. And this angel, it was like he had his knee, and he was balancing his elbow on his knee, and he had his hand on his forehead. And I was like, no way. I felt like swearing. I was like, no way, no way. And I was just there, and he had his I am Archangel Michael. And I said that, no way. And as I said no way, he took his hand away from his head and turned around and looked at me. And I was like, I'm really scared, as if like I'm being told off. Believing I've come, and you are not believing. I was like, this is crazy. And I was like, I had a big wake up call. So I swore again in my head. I was like, you're real. And then I just felt this feeling of just feeling very calm. And I just was like, telepathically, messages were being sent that you're going to be taken care of, you're safe, I'm here to support you. And it makes me feel emotional now. And it's the work that I later trained as an angel practitioner, the work that I do, I can sense the individual personalities of the angels. And that's why I was talking about like learning to be psychic. Learn first your feelings and thoughts, where you're coming from. Because externally, it's hard to make sense of the external world if you don't understand your own emotions and feelings. So now, as I work as an angel practitioner, I'm aware of each of the angels' presence and the work that I do. I mean, I only later found out that, you know, I also work with Archangel Metronon, and he's like a soul keeper before you pass over, you know, the accountability of your life. I didn't realize that's who I'd made the acquaintance with when I died the first time in the Hall of Souls. And now I would do channeling and trance work, working alongside some of the angels, depending on what I'm doing. When I'm doing healing, I don't do healing anymore. That's not what I choose to do. I'm a Reiki master and everything, but that was another area that started me on my journey by learning how to do the meditation, by tuning into the energy, being aware of my chakras and my energy source of my internal body through learning Reiki opened me up more. I trained then become medical intuitive because I started learning about how our organs vibrate, through stress. This is the physiology, this is the humans, this is what really happens. So that awakening was really about there are such things as angels and we're here by your side. And communication, working telepathically with my angel, reminded me of my day of my accident when I first got knocked down by the van. That was the same style of communication, and that's the same style as a medium I work with my guides.
Yeah, telepathy on the other side.
Yeah. And then learn more about Atlantis, the third eye and the crystals, and learn more. My journey, this is all part of my journey. So I'm saying that as a human individual, sometimes we think, oh, we're boring, nothing's really happened to us. But yes, you've gone through life experiences. Every experience has brought you to this time and space. This is your journey. It's evaluate it, And so I remember that day I had this experience. It wasn't so much of an out of body in a sense of me looking down at it. It was more of me. It was like stepping to one side and looking at my physical self was in pain. She physically couldn't breathe. She needed an ambulance urgently. And I was thinking very much of my daughter, Rebecca, and she was living in the house at the time. Rebecca ran upstairs and called the ambulance. And I remember I was being taken to hospital and looked after, and then they diagnosed that I have a lifelong lung condition, which should stop me from doing so much. But I was later informed by my angels, it was again making me aware of my journey in a past life that I'd had scarring from being burnt, or life as a chimney sweep little boy in Victorian times, breathing in all the fumes from the soot.
Incredible.
So that started me on another journey. So it's like
it just keeps going deeper and deeper with you. You've got it all.
there's something for everybody. There is a treasure map in everyone's soul, and it's just about uncovering your treasure trove and your jewels and what's helped you to be who you are right now. Because when you understand who you are, you then have your potential in front of you, then are able to move faster and to reach your goal in this life. Oh, in my next life I'll do that. No, it's about being aware of your full potential, knowing that those are little jewels and that they make you who you are, and then so you can live to your best version of yourself, and so that you can attract exactly what you want to accomplish in this lifetime. Yeah.
Tell me about, is it called past life regression? Do you do that? Is that what you do with the Akashic Records? Let's talk about that.
Okay, Brian Wise, I'll go with him because he's an author of these books, Many Lives, Many Masters. He used to be, I think he was a scientist, a psychiatrist, whatever, and he studied in that field. And through hypnotherapy, he took his first client, Catherine. It's all in his books. I read the books, which was really weird, years and years and years ago, a long time before this happened to me, the stuff that was going on. I was just intrigued. Yeah. And he was talking to his client, and he was using regression through hypnotherapy to take his client back through some trauma she was experiencing in this lifetime. as the human being. He really wasn't into all this stuff. And in one of his sentences, he forgot to say to her, or he didn't mention to her about go back as far as you can remember as in your childhood an experience that happened. So he went, go back as far as you can to see if this is connected to something in your life. Now, I'm a qualified clinical hypnotherapist too, as a counselor. And I'm like, okay, I do this with my clients. In this lifetime, if they've got a phobia or something. And then when I trained as past life practitioner, I was like, oh, I can use this with past lives too, the hypnotherapy. Now, every day we're hypnotized to some degree, right? If you look, it's as simple. It's not like waving a watch in front of your eyes. If you look at,
yes.
yeah, so it's not that, right? And some people get really freaked out, like, I won't have control if someone hypnotizes me. It's not that at all. It's a bit like, if we look at, and I used to work in marketing as well, part of my life jobs. If you look at the advertisements we have on telly, and there's certain brands that we use, Nike, or you've got Rimmel, or the strapline because you're worth it. We or we hear a little tune and we know it's over an advert for a fast food chain or whatever. We're hypnotized every day through the adverts we watch. Okay, so, and it's simple. We've got our eyes open, we're watching TV, we go into autopilot mode, and this is very much about the hypnotherapy mode. So that's one thing. So it's not to freak people out. So through the past life regression work that I do, and trained by Brian Weiss, it's like literally I could be talking to anybody like you in a conversation, and I'll know how to sort of use certain words or certain sentences, and we start looking back through, is that in this lifetime, your childhood, and we go back, and I'll show you, I use this device. It's simple, just like if we imagine this is us here now, I'll say to my clients, go back as far as you can remember. When was the trauma that happened? Was that in that younger self? How old is that self? And I keep going back and go back and go back. And what I do is go back through, as simple as that. We're just chatting like this. We'll go back and it's like, does that make sense? Or what comes to mind? Is there a period of history you like? Somebody might like the war, somebody might like 1930s, some might go back even further, the Egyptian period, or even further. And we're investigating, not as a counselor, we're just going, what are the feelings you're feeling? And we just move all the way through the history. Now, the reason for doing that is because, God, it goes off into something else as well. Because, say, for instance, with my lungs, there was no medical reason why I have my lung condition. I have intense scarring on my lungs. There's no reason for it. I didn't smoke through my lifetime. I didn't live in a household full of people smoking. So how would I have got this condition? It's due to people smoking, like myself or relatives. And the hospital couldn't believe me. So that's why I started thinking, it must be a reason for this. So the past life stuff came up when I started reading these books. I'd done a weekend workshop with Brian Weiss from America, but he came into London this weekend. It was crazy how I got tickets. And I was like, oh, it was meant to be. I understand that now. Got these tickets, did this workshop for the weekend, did this workshop, loved it, was in the audience, fantastic. And then I heard that he said at some point he's going to run a workshop at the Omega Institute in America, New York, at some point. And it just went over my head, and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And I just thought, hang on, one day I'd love to go to do this training with him, not to become a past life practitioner, but just to investigate it more. So a number of years went by. I think it was about 10 years that went by. I was studying for something else. I made friends with this woman on this course, and then she said, oh, I'm going on this past life regression practitioner's course. I'm going to train to become a past life practitioner. I was like, but why? She said, because I'm fascinated, blah, blah, blah. She's in America, and it's happening in the next couple of weeks. And I said to her, oh my God, who's teaching it? And she said, Brian Weiss. And I was like, oh my God, I saw him 10 years ago. I wanted to do this course or see him again. I didn't realize. And she goes, well, it's fully booked. I contacted the Institute in America, and they said they've got one place remaining. Someone had just cancelled, and I'm like, oh, hello, I'm meant to be doing it. So I did the course. I trained with him, became very friendly. He happened to be staying in the same hotel as my best friend. I spoke to him. We had dinner a few evenings with him and his wife, and it was lovely. And we looked at it even further. And through more research and from the work that I do as past life practitioner, there's like a common thread that plays out in our lives. And if we do not look at it as a teaching, it can happen again in the next life, and the next life, and the next life. So to make sense of what's happened and a repeating cycle, and it might be as a human, you've got a repeating cycle anyway that's going on. You know, you meet the same type of man or the same type of woman, or you get into the same dead-end job, you're repeating the cycle. So we look at this lifetime, where's it come from? If it's not this, I then may go back to a past life. That where did this come from? You come in this lifetime as a soul pod. So there might be family members or friends that you've had in this lifetime that you have now. They could be from previous lifetimes that are playing out the same pattern of behavior with you. But it could be that in this lifetime you're their mother or their daughter or their son or their father or their best friend. So we play different roles in different lifetimes. So it's a bit like the little Russian doll. We play many different characters in different lifetimes. And I have this a lot with people who say they have soulmates or twin flames that come forward. And we look at, why is that soulmate come forward in this lifetime? And I'm at the moment dating somebody that we have such a connection that we've realized that we've come through in past lives together too. So he's always stepped in to help me in different lifetimes. So that's what fascinates me. It's like medically, my lungs could not have happened in this human existence as I am here. And I deal with a lot of clients that have got medical conditions or a scar or a birthmark somewhere, and or they've got a feeling that could they've been a witch in a previous lifetime, only because they're really interested in herbal remedies now, or they, you know, they're just interested in certain parts of history. So that's something else I do, just so that it's a bit like everyone's life is a jigsaw puzzle, and there might be parts or pieces missing. So with the work that I do, I help them look at, where is the piece missing, or shall we move that piece? It's not quite right, it goes there. And I look through the Hall of Souls, the Akashic records, and look at their blueprint and go, this is what's going on. This is why this person's been brought into your life, and this is what could possibly come in your future. Yeah.
I wanted to bring up, so I don't know what it is, but I'm so drawn to channeling. I'm absolutely obsessed with it, and I meditate daily. And I wonder if the fact that I'm so drawn to it unknowingly, is that maybe something that I should be working on?
That's interesting. So with channeling, we channel. So if you think of channeling, it's a bit like a hose pipe or an electric cable on the outside. And so, like, if we've got a hose pipe, the water comes through the tap and the water comes through, right? You got to think, as a channeler, you're like that hose pipe, okay? Or if I see, like, I'll give another example, that okay, telephone. I really see me as a telephone. So I am the channel, the telephone. I hear information from the other side. That person who sits in front of me can't hear it, so I channel it from them. And again, like the hose pipe, it would be the water goes through. So the water's not you, it's the water's from another source, but you are aware of it. So you give the information to wherever, a water, the garden, or whatever. But I'd use the telephone thing. I think it's better. So it's a bit like, they always get me in the early days when I started doing this. They gave me, like, you know, during the war, they would have a switchboard, or the old times, and the telephone operator would have this device strapped to their head and then go, hello, caller, who's calling? Where would you like to go to? And that's like, you know, my sitter in front of me, who is it you'd like to connect with? And then you can see they have a cable and they pin you in on the switchboard. And it's a bit like them on the other side. Now it's more advanced in the sense of, now I've been doing this for some time now. It is like there's a waiting room there, the door swings around and who comes forward. But as a channeler, you are just channeling. And I don't want to say just, because it's about us being our optimum best. So as a channeler, it's about me taking care of, and I heard this from my guides, taking care of my health. My physical and emotional health is really important. So again, I know what's my emotions and what's theirs on the other side. And so I'm aware of that totally. There's a difference. Because in the early days, when I was really inexperienced, I could pick up something from, you know, them on the other side. And then I feel that feeling, because I have the way that I see, I hear, I feel, I taste spirit. So taste, when I'm working on a case with the police, if there's been a murder, I might taste blood in the back of my throat. Smelling, I can smell, you know, if it's lavender or other things. So I smell perfumes and I can tell my client, oh, she wore that type of perfume. I can hear things. I see things and I have a knowing. So I sense how that individual is. And I allow spirits to loved ones to overshadow my body. So they are allowed to step in, a bit like the old movie called Ghost, where Whoopi Goldberg where I can't remember his name now, to come in. So I
Patrick
allow
Swayze.
that's it. That's the one. Patrick Swayze. So I allow loved ones to pop in internally. A lot of mediums don't. They prefer them to be on the outside. So I then channel the information. I prefer it because then I can really feel, you know, the loved one. The reason why I have all these modalities, some mediums will like only be able to hear or see or whatever, but I have all of them to some degree.
Yeah.
I think because then that whoever's on the other side, if I've got somebody on the other side and they were never really somebody who spoke a lot, it was an uncle that didn't really talk a lot, it would be really hard medium just trying to hear from him because he's not going to change. He's still the same personality. So I need to be able to have my other senses about me so that I then can give the information. So the uncle who never really spoke up in real life, because I want to make sure my client is aware that is her uncle. Because if I said, oh, he's coming through, he's really talkative, that wasn't him. So he comes through his personality. He might visually give me some images and then I'll go, oh, but he's showing me. So I need to have all of them aware, you see, and different people, you know, who I have. So I channel mediums. So that's how it works. And again, when I channel, I make sure I have my team of guides. So I would teach my students, which I've been doing online with some of my students and also the college, that you have guides there who protect you and assist you. There might be angels, there might be your loved ones, but you build up this, again, knowing who you are, so that when you start doing the exercises and practice of having your guides, that they come to my right-hand side. I have different guides. I have quite a lot of guides because I work professionally and I've been doing this for a few years. Initially, my first guide was my granddad that came through, who looked after me as a child. So I recognized his personality, the smell of him, and I heard him. I'm like, oh, is that you or is that my mind? And then I started learning what the difference was with my mind and having my guides. And then my gatekeeper, so he's on my left-hand side, and my gatekeeper is very big because I work professionally, and your gatekeepers change and so do your guides constantly. With your gatekeeper, if you're working with spirit, you want to make sure they're there energetically to take care of your energy, to help you. So if I have a client, which I don't have clients that are horrible, I have really lovely clients. If you have a client that is really bad-tempered, I don't want to be feeling their energy as an empath or a psychic. My gatekeeper will like create this bubble of light to protect me. And when I'm working in trance, my gatekeeper's there to say, right, okay, Anne said she's only working for 30 minutes. He's like a doorman or a bouncer or nightclub. 30 minutes is up. You need to go now. So I do trance as well. I channel the Council of Light and Galactic Council, and I do that as well. So, you know, again, I am just a channel and not just, because I have to make sure that I'm fully trained, that I know what I'm doing, that I'm taking care of Anne, and that then I can give her pure information straight through source. And when I'm channeling and doing trance, I don't know what I've said to anybody, and I do this like weekly. I have no idea, because this information's not mine, and you know, with channeling, it's not our information. It's not meant for us to hold on. So, you know, I have thousands of clients where they might say, I saw you last time, do you remember? I'm like, I don't remember, because this is not my information. I'm like the telephone. I give you what they give me, and it's for you. And that's why I record every session, so they can listen back. So as a channeler, it's really first take care of your mental and physical and emotional health first. And you start practicing being aware of your energy, and then you open up your, you know, there's a method to that. Then you'll learn to open up, to work with your guides and ask for information to come forward.
Could it be possible that I could ask your guides a question?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see what happens.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for being present, by the way. Just to thank your guides before I speak. So there's a lot of chaos going on in the world at the moment. You know, everything, the energy is up and down. Us as individuals, or a collective, I should say, How could we keep our vibration high as not to be affected by all the chaos that's going around us? For those like me who are aware of everything, how can I stay vibrationally high on a day-to-day basis with everything that's going on?
Okay, straight away they laughed and they said, this is not normal for the human being to be high from day to day. What it is that the human is feeling. You're an empath. There are many empaths on your planet, especially at this time, because they have been stepped forward and they're meant to come this period of time. What they need to do is actually, as Anne said, it would be to look at who they are individually. It would be for them to practice their own method of coming in on themselves. Many of your humans are very sensitive, the empaths, and they go out and they connect information. And this overloads your system. Many of you on your planet will be overwhelmed at this time. You know, this nonsense of you have your news, how it's broadcasted to you, as you might say, or we would say, as in channeled, and we laugh right now because it's channeled to you. But it's something as misinterpretations of what is going on around the world. Remember, the human has this part of themselves that they are inquisitive if there's some trauma or drama and they want to know more. Obviously, this is to protect themselves. For the subconscious mind is to protect themselves, that it stores this information. So, i.e., we'll go back, meaning that humans are intrigued with, if there is somebody's car that breaks down or there is an accident, the human passing by will want to see what's going on. This is in curiosity, and this curiosity is then they feel that is to protect themselves to some degree. This is going on in milliseconds within their subconscious mind as to protect themselves. So this is normal and natural that humans are going to be inquisitive to see what's going on the planet, just because to protect themselves. This was innate, this was born into you, because this is a safety mechanism to protect you. This is normal. So humans are normally inquisitive about what is going to happen and to protect themselves. This is important. Not normal to be on a natural high all day long, every day, 24/7, all the millions and seconds that you have in your lifetime. So we suggest, if you know yourself and what affects you, why would you put yourself closer to it? I.e., if you burn your hand by a fire, you would not put your hand back in the fire again. This would just be pure stupidity. But what we are suggesting then is, if you know that how you receive information is through the news, through your TV, through your radio, and this affects you, then we would say, do not listen to this. This is simple. We know humans don't quite understand the word simple in the sense they want to look further and deeper into researching this. But what we would say is to then also to connect to those like-minded people they have, and connect with the communities of individuals that are feeling very similar to them. Humans have a good way of moaning, you groaning, people moan together, they feel they're part of this tribe, but it's not good for your human state. And we look at the humans who then just moan all the time. This is not good to yourself either. There are those then also who try to in some pretense that they're naturally high all the time. This is incorrect. This is impossible. Your human vessel is meant to experience many, many, many different senses. That's why the soul has come into the human being, and you have senses. You are meant to feel some of these senses. You are not meant to be cold and extracted from your society around you. You are going through these experiences. This is normal for your soul to have its soul group and soul development. So we would suggest that look at what is upsetting your system, as in your human being, your physical vessel, and if it makes you feel, and emotional vessel, and if it makes you feel that you feel overwhelmed, it would be to stop watching those programs or listening. It would be to join with like-minded people, and it would be to connect. We also say through the meditations, you bring yourself in, you connect back to yourself. You have everything that you need. Your physical form was created that if you cut yourself, you will heal yourself. Your body heals after a cut. The scab, the blood cells. So you have everything that you need. Does this answer your question?
Very much so. Thank you so much for that. That was incredible. I was not expecting that. That was absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for that. I have goosebumps right now. That was amazing.
They come in, and they're like,
yeah, they were there.
Yeah. And so that's so when I have a client, they will be slightly different, the guys, but these guys, they know I was having the interview today. They've been here in the background, they've been popping in, saying a little few things, but when you ask them directly a question, they haven't had a human existence. So these are different guides now. So if I'm working with humans, they will have their guides, as in they might be human, loved ones passed over, but these guides that just come in, they're more like counsel. They're more like they come straight in because they know that the work that I do. And that's why I was meant to have all those near-death experiences, to wake me up to the fact that, hey, this is what you're meant to do. And that's why I had on the third near-death experience in the hospital, my heart stopped beating during an operation. And I remember when I went down to theatre, it was like, I think the colour walls were blue or something, I can't remember. And then all I know is that during that actual episode, my heart stopped. I remember feeling that I was getting told off from the other side. The guy that came through, it was a man, and he had the most strangest haircut. He had a fringe that sort of stopped here straight across, and he looked like a dentist. You remember a dentist? He had like a white outfit with buttons here, like a dentist thing that had folded over, a little tiny gold rimmed framed glasses, and he kept on turning around saying, I know. And he went, I'm telling you now, they're saying to you, stay in your body. You're not ready yet. We're fixing the problem. Wait a moment. And I was like, huh? And then I came back to all these bells ringing and doctors. I woke up and they were like, she's back. And I was like, where's that man gone? And all I know is it was nurses that were female, and it was doctors that were female around me. The anaesthetist was a female. It was a blue room. And I went, it was a white room with this white man doctor told me to come back. And the nurse just looked at me and went, oh yeah, she popped out of her body, that's for sure. So again, it was like, come back, go back into your physical self. And that's when I was told, you're not taking care of your physical body enough. And then, you know, looking at my diet, looking at exercise and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that as well, because I just started changing my diet. I've just incorporated more vegetables, more water, reminding myself to drink water. I got up earlier today, meditated earlier rather than later, so I don't fall asleep. And so it's like this is intuitively something that I already knew. And so that's why I wanted to ask the question. Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, you know, because the thing is, the way they describe it to me, I was trying to make sense of this. The way they described it was that if we look at a car, if we imagine a car, the car is the physical body. So your physical human being, which is being in the moment, being, doing things. You are the human being. You are the car, okay? The physical self. The driver is the soul. So as the driver can come in and out of the vehicle, the driver takes care of the body, as in that the vehicle itself.
Yeah.
And it's like the soul is the driver. So our soul can pop in and out of different vehicles. So past lives, it just makes sense. We're different people each time. So we might go from a Mini to a Volvo to a Mercedes to a Ferrari, whatever it is. So that's the physical body. That's the human body. But the soul is the driver. It's always the same. So, you know, if we were told this is it, we've got one body, you know, like the vehicle, you know, we take our car to get washed. We take it into the mechanics, you know, we put fuel into it. We wouldn't put cheap fuel into our car because we'd be worried it'd be upsetting it. But yet we put cheap, crappy food into our bodies. It's the same thing.
Wow.
So it's the whole same thing. It's brilliant. And I learned that from my last near-death experience. And that was 2018. So not long ago.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. We need an oil change from time to time.
We need to upgrade everything, upgrade software, you know, like our phones, our computer systems, we turn on our phone. And then we're told, oh, there is a software update. If we don't do the software update, we know we're going to get some sort of virus. So we have a software update. So as humans, I would say as a therapist, as a soul therapist, I help humans to have a soul software update, and that just means we look at what's there, what's happened, and we move forward. So we don't end up, you know, not working or functioning properly.
Wow. Do you mind if I ask one more question to your guys, or is it tiring? Like, do you feel tired afterwards?
I sometimes do my trance work. I've done trance work for about an hour and I was exhausted. And after I did a trance on February the 13th, I'll never forget, I was doing trance for about an hour and a half. And on February the 14th, I had a brain bleed and a seizure. Now, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that there was something that happened. I sort of popped something, and I had a stroke, but it was just because of I do this every day. It's different for me. I was working really hard, and medical consultants will say it's something else, and I might know it's something else, but I just felt it was that rewiring of something that was going on to make it easier for me to keep doing the work. So yeah, so questions are good. It's okay, all fine.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you about the law of attraction, because I did ask one medium in a previous podcast about the law of attraction, and she likened it to a triangle, which then that was her message from her guides. It wasn't a channeled message, it was just a guides guiding her. And so she likened it to a triangle of mind, body, and spirit. And so you had to sort of use all three aspects in order to make it really
Right.
work.
I love this. I love this. I love this. Yes, they're ready.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask another person's perspective on how can we be that which we want to be in order to attract that which we want, rather than I want a car. And something else I wanted to mention is that I wanted a neighbor who had children, and I wanted a friend who was like me. I got all of that, and so I had an aha moment that is it from the heart and not I want a car because it's cool. It's,
Yeah,
oh, I need it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So could we
yeah,
talk about
yes.
feelings, emotions, and how does the law of attraction work?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to ask that question first, Anne, and then I'm going to give it over to my guides, and we'll see what we get coming through. And I love that because already they're quite excited. And I love this. This is my main thing I absolutely love, because people can change their life. And I've done that from being a child in poverty and having nothing, hunger or anything else, to having so much more than that. And this is my pet thing. This is what I teach, and this is why I'm here. Everybody, that you can have what you want. Literally, you can have what you want, but you just have to have that belief in it. Okay, it's not like magic in the sense of you wishing. It's nothing like that. So I ran a couple of I do run a lot of workshops, and one of my workshops I remember I ran was in January a couple of years ago, and it had about 26 clients, and they were all sitting in the room, was doing this workshop and everything. And I said, really write down what you'd like to moving forward. It's like New Year's resolution and all this thing, and what you want to happen and everything else. Anyway, so 26 people, and then my guides, I always ask my guides to join me on my workshops, and my guides tell us that there's 2 people that haven't quite understood what it is they want moving forward, what they want to manifest and everything. So I was like, okay. So I said, okay, those who haven't put down what I think they put down, they might have put down they want to win the lottery. There's 2 of you at least. Can you put your hand up? And very sort of like one of them didn't want to put their hand up, obviously, because it's called out, Anyway, so I said, I know the other person, I hope you don't mind. And I called them out and I said, it's fine, but why would you want to win the lottery? And I said, it's very general, you're thinking. And she said, yeah, no, the reason is because I want to buy a car, I want to buy a house for my mom, I want to do this, I want to do that, blah, 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 blah. And I went, wow, is anyone else feeling any passion in that? I'm like, no one's feeling any passion. So I said to her, why do you want to buy a car? And she said, well, my car's really old and I need a new one now. I went, okay, let's go deeper than that. I said, okay, now what sort of car would you like? And she said, I want a Mercedes. And I said, okay. So why would you want a Mercedes? And she said, well, they're really nice cars. And when I'm on the motorway, I see people, they look at me in my old car and I look, blah, blah, blah. I said, but that's what you, on your old car, what do you want to feel in your new car? And she said, well, I want to feel that, I'm special, that, that I've got everything I want in life, and that, people look up to me and they admire me. And I went, okay, now, can you start feeling the difference in your heart center rather than your head? I said, let's go deeper with that. So I knew this client had come from a poor family background. I wasn't going to bring that up in the group, but I was mentioning some bits, and she knew because I was working with her as a therapist as well. And there's a few things I dropped in, and I didn't go into great detail. And I said, so how would that make you feel? And she said, that I've really accomplished something in my life. I was always told that I could never accomplish everything. And she put her hand straight onto her heart, you see. And I said, and have you sat behind a new Mercedes? No. And I said, so you don't know how it feels? And she said, no. And I said, so I want you to imagine that you've got your hands on the steering wheel now, and you can smell this leather. And you've got your hands here, and as you're driving, you're looking out the window, still driving sensibly, safely, but you're looking out the window and you can see these people passing you and going, wow, look at her in that car. how would it make you feel? And she went, wow, to actually feel that, to sort of be aware of how people saw me. And I could feel her heart elevating and getting really like passionate and feeling. I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, so we did this exercise and she was really feeling it from the heart center. And the heart is the first organ that you're created with. So when you have a scan and I think it's the heart you see pumping away, it's the first organ. I think 6-7 weeks, maybe even more than that, that you'll start to see the heart pumping. It's the first organ that we have. So it's part of the soul. Okay, it's already starting to prepare itself. And so her heart was really feeling it. And because her heart was feeling it, her body became flooded with all these endorphins. You know, the chemical reaction in your body. Remember, the physical body is all part of this. So her whole body was starting feeling elevated and that this is how I'm going to feel when I have, you know, this Mercedes and the feeling it feels. She was feeling it so much. And I said, can you try writing that down now? And I want you to put in all the emotions of how you're going to make you feel. Now, I've said before, when you have these emotions and your chemical reactions going on in your body, your organs are going to be vibrating differently, like a bit like a cat. When you're stroking a cat, they start purring, and it's like your heart is purring now, and it starts sending out like a beacon effect. I've done this with people who want to manifest loved ones in their life, like lovers, and it's worked, and it's just crazy how it works. So it starts going out around you. It's like an energy field. You know, your organs start with it, your body physically starts with it, and it's like the energy is pumped out into your energy field around you. And then what happens is the universe is going to attract like for like. It has to. It doesn't understand words. The universe does not understand the vocabulary. If you think of all the words around the world, all the different languages, only going to understand the feeling around a word. A bit like a dog, you know? I mean, yeah, you can teach a dog to say sit. They start understanding the odd word. But it's the tone of the voice and the body language. And that's how the universe is aware and attracts in like for like. We know that, like for like. So if you get up and you stub your toe in the morning on the bed and you're like, you feel I'm going to have a bad day now, this is what happens. You're only psychologically, yes, going to look out for the bad things, but you're also preparing your body to be on guard. And then you start to become aware of those bad things and you attract negativity, because you can't get two energies. It's like having in the ocean where two different, you know, the Pacific or the Atlantic trying to go together. It's just not going to work. You've got to be in the flow of the universe. So it's a bit like, you know, you said about neighbors. I know my previous house, I said I wanted to have, I know it's going to sound very weird, an Irish lady and a Scottish husband, and I want them to be a professional, maybe a teacher. It turns out he's a lecturer, he's Scottish, he works at a local university, she's Irish, her background, she's professional, she works in social services. The other lady, I was like, well, I want them again to be a different ethnicity, and I want to be a doctor, and I want a husband to be an engineer, and I created them, and they had children too. Incredible. When I moved in, yeah, it was crazy, because in my mind, this is what this person or this section of society meant to me. And, you know, I thought, okay, then they're going to be professional. Maybe they won't be playing loud music at night. Maybe I'll get some peace. So it's like, why, what's around it? So here in my new apartment, it was like, I want to be by water. I wanted to have trees around me. And I'm like, I don't know, just put me somewhere where I feel safe and protected. I feel like I want to be in a nest, that sort of environment. I'm coming out of an old relationship, I wanted to feel protected. So it's very freaky how this happened. I didn't even want to move in this area. I didn't think of this area. I was given a postcode. I checked this apartment out. I'm on the top floor. And I said to my friend the other day, I feel like I'm in a nest. I can look down at everybody, which is brilliant. 2-minute walk from my house, there is the river. And 4 or 5 minutes, I have Kew Gardens, which is a large sort of national park sort of thing. It's beautiful trees. So I attracted what I needed. I didn't ask for anything else. So everything that's not quite right, that's my own fault because I didn't put it out.
Yeah.
I'm now going to ask my guides. Not my guides, I'm going to go further. Let's have a look to see what they say. Okay, they're laughing. You've said everything. So this makes sense. It's the energy that you transmit within your body. It's not with the heart, the head, it's with the heart. The head confuses things. The head has the subconscious mind, your finding system of what you think things are. So if you go with what you want, you can pull out of the finding system of what that means to you. So, but then you transmit it. You send it through the head of what it means, going down into the heart, and bring the heart that this is what you want. There are many lovers out there who want to attract lovers. Now, with the lovers, it's very different. You attract in what you need and what you feel that you need to learn from that individual lover. It is the heart that is the beacon that sends out, and it affects your environment. If you imagine it all merges into one, it all vibrates. The energy has to match up. Universe is very prickly. If there is some energy here and this is another energy, it feels prickly. It can't merge together. It's a bit like static. It's static, the rubbing of your balloons on the hair and then you pull it away. It's very much like static, and it attracts in what you need whatever given time. But this, you must know, there's also more than this. So if you are not ready for something, you cannot ask for it and then you receive it automatically. There may be that there needs to be some work done upon yourself. So for those of you, for those of you who send out that they wish for something to happen and to occur, if it's not right time, it will not occur necessarily. It might need some work doing upon it on a soul level of why that you wish for it. So it's not as in magic, as in daydreaming in the sense of you wish to become a millionaire. You may not become that millionaire because of the reason that you have not done the work on it. The passion will power you and draw you and help you. But it might be that you are not meant to be a millionaire in this lifetime. This could be past lifetimes that are holding you onto this too. So energetically, it's very different from how you imagine it. But yes, manifestation is simple. You need to get your body into the set from the mind of wishing what it wishes for and your wish list that you create. And then you go down into the heart so that you ask your heart what it is that it feels that it wants from whatever it is. Your heart will then process it, will send this out as an energy field, and then yes, it will come straight back to you like a magnet. So like for like. But beware, those who say they have been manifesting for years and this has not been answered, or the same thing as in praying, it's just that it's not meant to be how you think it's going to be. Okay, all right, I'll tell the story in a moment. Okay, so very much it's about of manifestation with the heart. The mind brings drop down into the heart, sends out the emotions and the feeling. Okay, thank you. I said, okay, I'm sorry, I was having a little conversation. So that was more one of my guides that came in. So different energy from before. The trance was very different in a sense of channeled from light council. The previous question, this is more of like my guide, wasn't so intense because I'd already explained it. So okay, so they said tell the story of how she did receive her car. So that person that was on my workshop, she did receive her car. I got a message from her, I don't know, I think it was about 3 weeks later. And she said, I got the car, and I laughed because I knew how she got the car. But I said to her, yeah, did you win the lottery? She went, no, I didn't win the lottery. And I went, no. I said, well, how did you get the car? Then she goes, I got promotion. I don't know how it happened, but I got promotion. I had a pay increase. They said I get a company car. I chose the Mercedes. And I said, see, when you
awesome.
If you come around and say you want to win the lottery because I want to buy myself a car, it's not going to happen, because in this lifetime you're not meant to win the lottery, but you're meant to have that car because of all the emotions of how you feel and what it means to you, that you know, stepping up in society from your side, you know, where you come from, your childhood, it means this, and that's how you got your car, because you were feeling. And I said, how does it feel when you sit in your car? She went, exactly the feeling I felt when I imagined how it was going to feel. And I went, there you go, bingo.
That's incredible. I love that. And thank you so much for channeling. That was such an amazing experience. I've never experienced something like that before. Oh, amazing.
I mean, they just said, literally, my guides are here. It's child's play. Children manifest all the time, but adults, they make it more complicated, and it doesn't need to be complicated. So it's just about, you know, using the feeling of what we think it would be like, or what it means to us. Why it's normally about, why is it we want that certain thing in the first place? And you look at the emotions around, why is it you want that house, or why is it you want the neighbor, or why is it that you want that lover in your life? Why is it? And sometimes, like, people come to me as a soul coach, like where they've had blockages and they can't achieve what they want, and they go, well, I've been manifesting, or this has happened to me again. I unpick it with them, so they look at what's holding you back, what's stopping it, what's going on.
Is it possible that we manifest bad health? Do you know what I mean? So with our thoughts, is there an importance with thoughts also?
Right, okay, I'm glad you mentioned that. Now, yeah, with bad health, if I look at some of my health situations that's come up, you know, sometimes like, oh, I'm so busy, I need some time off. And the next minute I know I've got a cold. I'm like, why? Because of, it's like, well, you asked for some time off. Now, the only way it's going to stop you, Sue, because you're always busy working, if you have a cold, you need to stop, right? There is that. And then there's those moments where people are like, you know, really tragically ill. There is research on a science level, like how you're feeling in yourself, how you process the world. So this is one of my things I'm really key on. There are moments, you know, positive, negative mindset, whatever. And, you know, as a mindset coach as well, we look at this, however we process information in our lives. So depending on how you've been brought up, you know, your childhood, it all stems from childhood. So however you've been brought up in a household, or, you know, some people are very negative around you, that's your pattern of behavior of then how you can be quite negative and maybe only pick up on negativity around you. And by doing this, you're only absorbing that negative stuff in life. So it's the half empty glass or the half full glass. The negative is the half empty glass, where you see life as in, these things are always happening to me, not happening for you, changing your life. It's like, I lost my job again, or this has happened to me. Why is it always happening to me? Now, that's more of a negative mindset. And from that mindset, if you imagine everything that we think of, our body's processing it. Our heart feels it. Our body then says, okay, there's this, our chemistry set in our body. We know this from the chemicals we produce. It starts making our immune system run down. And so physiology happens. So we do then start getting ill. So there's many things to this. Whereas if you look at your mindset and you try to be optimistic to some degree, and you look at it from a point of view of, this has happened to me for me to help me to move out of a situation, then your body starts feeling in a different way. Your chemical reaction is very different on this physiology level. And then, so life is very different. And psychologically, you start seeing things in a different way. And then your health is more likely to be more upbeat. Sorry. So, yeah. So I think you can change your life. Well, I know that you can change your life. I do this to people all the time. We look at where you are at and where you need to move into what area, and how you can make small, tiny changes. And it does affect your health as well in a positive way. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Before we sort of go on the podcast, is there anything that you wanted to share that you feel is quite important that we've missed?
Yeah, I think the last word on everything really would be that whatever background, whatever's happened to you as an individual, that you can change your life. Never assume that, you know, I met a cab driver the other day, and I talk about this on my Instagram, and a young guy in his 20s, and I was saying, do you enjoy what you're doing? I mean, I don't care what job you do. You know, you can be, you know, a doctor, a professor, a cleaner, a cook. You know, my mum's a cleaner. She absolutely loves it. That's her thing. I don't care what job you do at all. If you're happy in it, yeah, because you're 24/7, you've got these amount of hours that you allocate in your life. If you're in a job that you absolutely hate, then you probably hate your life. So if you can make a small change and like know that you can actually do whatever job you want to do, but you have to believe in yourself and believe that you can get there, you can change your life. You know, there was part of my childhood, we really didn't have any food. And, you know, I'd go to bed on an empty stomach and it would really hurt. You know, literally, we were freezing cold. And I remember one Christmas, my uncle came to my house and we had nothing. We were sitting on boxes in the house. My mum had left my dad and whatever. And we had like a tangerine and a few nuts. I mean, it's not Victorian times. And I remember feeling, my God, this is what Christmas actually means. I was a kid. I was really young. I must have been about 5 or something. And I remember thinking, this is what Christmas is about. It's not receiving these electronic games or whatever it was, or these fancy clothes or whatever. But that feeling of that, my uncle feeling so much that he wanted to make sure that we enjoyed Christmas on that day, that small gift, that act of love, that stayed with me. And it's very much about, you know, things that I have now. I've had loads of cars, I've had really nice fancy houses and everything. And at the moment, no, things have changed, which is fine. But it's just like, I've learned over the years, it's like, we can change our mindsets, like we can change our clothes, really. We just have to be aware of who we are, what's going on for us. Take a look around you. Can you make any changes or small changes? And you can become anything you wanted to become. the cab driver said to me, oh, well, my parents sort of said that. So, oh.
I'm coming out with sympathy.
It's like a hairboard. I don't know why. Probably them saying to me, I'm talking too much. The young cab driver said to me, but this is it. It's all I can do. He goes, I didn't do very well at school. The teacher said that, you know, I'm dyslexic. I'll never achieve this. And he's believed it. He's soaked into him. And his parents have said, this is what we do from our family background. You know, work in a shop. We work here. We do that. And I've worked in a shop and worked my way up into management. You know, my son's dyslexic and he's a commercial pilot at the age of 26. And he works for a big airline and he's dyslexic and was told constantly. But it's having this feeling in you that you can achieve and do anything that you want to do. But it's like looking at the modalities, looking at what it is that I need to look at to make those changes so I can achieve and become anything I want to become. And it's when we start feeling this, it's more than manifestation. It's like really stepping into that. It's really knowing that, yeah, I had to become a counsellor. I'm dyslexic. I came away with school without any qualifications. I had to train to become a counsellor. I did it. You know, everything I've wanted to become, I've become. No one stopped me from becoming what I wanted to become. I was a zookeeper looking after tigers and lions as a teenager. At that time, there was no women doing that job. But I had this belief in me, this innate belief you can become anything you want to become. And I did. And I walk into these fancy restaurants now and these fancy shops. And I'm like, no, do you know what? I can have anything I want to have, but you've got to have that ingrained, you know, ability to know that you can. And that's where I help clients. You know, we change things around. So it's about, you know, everything inside of you. You can achieve anything you want. And this thing about seeing is believing, that's utter nonsense. It's believe and you shall see. That's the other way around. So it's always about taking care of in-house of how you are, the health, medical, the physical, the mental, the emotional health, tuning in and just sitting there, letting the universe show you, you know, put out, test the universe, say what it is that you want. You know, I'm not saying ask for a Ferrari and watch the Ferrari appear. I'm not saying that, but it's like, think of a friend, see if you can start working that way, like connecting energetically, tune in, you want to hear from a friend, really go into how this friend makes you feel and watch what happens next. See those small signs. You know, some people might have signs like feathers, they might drop from the sky and they'll say, oh, well, because there was a bird flying over. That feather didn't need to land on your pathway. It could have landed over there on the other side of the road. You know, it's like being aware and ask for signs. You know, if you want to hear from a relative that's passed over, give them a clue. Oh, I want to see a safety pin on the floor or a penny, but they'll give them a time frame. Okay, today or the next couple of hours, or a great one is I like shuffling, they just said to me. So I have an old iPod, or I might use my phone and I go to my iTunes or something and I go to shuffle. And before I do that, I'm like, I need to know the answer to something, or I need to hear this message. I shuffle it and then the message is delivered in the song. I listen to the words and I'm like, now I understand. And that's what I'm saying. If you're driving along and you have music playing in your car, or you go in a supermarket and you hear something and it means something to you, either that song was played by someone you love, or there's some words in it that really hone in and you hear a couple of sentences, these are all signs the universe, the divine, God, angels, whoever you want to call, are hearing what you're saying and putting out to the universe. And you don't have to verbalize it out of your mouth saying, this is what I want. You can just think it or feel it. You know, feel it is a good thing, and then it's picked up straight away from, you know, whoever you believe in will deliver you the message. So, and be open to it. It's like a game.
111 222 333 444 1111 33. That's what's coming into my mind as well as you say that. I see them all the time. I know a lot of people say it, but I mean, really, every time I pick up my phone, 1111, no, there's no way. Like, what was I thinking at that point? What's the relevance to this number? Yeah. Just signs are everywhere.
And that's the thing. It's like so many people are like, oh yeah, well, of course it's 11:11. It means nothing. I just looked at my clock at that time. You know, you could have looked at 11:12 or 11:13 or 11:10 or 11:09, but but you looked at 11:11. What was that feeling? That's your intuition. It's like, oh, or walking down the road and like thinking, I need to catch this bus. Or I missed a massive train accident years ago. I was running late and I was like, why am I missing that? Why is everything going wrong for me today? And I was like, why? I can't believe this. And it's before I believed in anything at all. And I got to the station, there's been a massive train crash at Clapham Junction in London. And I was like, oh my God, if I had been on time, if all those things hadn't been in my way, I could have been on that train. I could have died. So look at, if things are going you think are wrong, actually it's that maybe them up there are sort of like tweaking things, changing things around. So it's like, be aware of what's going on around you. It's like, you know, it's simple things. My son flies planes, as I said, and yesterday he was in the cockpit ready to take off, and he had a funny feeling about something, and there was a tiny little smoky thing in one of the panels outside with the stewardess. And he said, you know, Mum, if I hadn't tuned in to my intuition, he goes, it was a little thing. It was just on the control panel, and it was to do with like making teas and coffees. But he goes, you know, who would have known? He goes, if that had set fire when we were flying. So, you know, small little things. If you tap into your intuition, we become like the animals. Animals can sense the storm. You know, we use that animal instinct, that intuition, and then life is so much easier. You just flow through life. If you start understanding how it works, it's like, I know why I didn't get that job now because of, I know why that person didn't come into my life because of, instead of thinking, oh, everything's against me. It's not. It's like, open up your eyes a little bit more. Look at it, that what's the other possibility why you didn't get it? And then your energy changes. You start going with the flow more. It starts getting you to where you need to go to, you know, your soul journey. It's a lot easier.
Yeah. And for the viewers watching, and how can they find you if they'd like to use your services, or even just to reach out with you, from this podcast? Where can they find you?
Okay, so I have Instagram, so it's Anne.Bayford, so that's Anne as in ANNE .Bayford, BAYFORD, and there's also my webpage, so it's www.annebayford.com or .co.uk. It's up to you entirely. Yeah, so those are the most places, and on Facebook as well, so Anne.Bayford, and I have a private group called Like-Minded Souls on Facebook. If you reach out to me, because if you go to my webpage, there is a bit where you can actually send me an email if you're interested in past lives or contacting me. So if you go to my website first, go on there is a way that you can contact me through there, or through yourself, or even leaving a message underneath with YouTube, and then I can message you back.
Well, I'll link all of it in the description below, and I'll put a little footnote on this video as we speak, and it will pop up on the screen for the viewers to see.
And also College of Psychic Studies as well. Sorry, so it's www.collegeofpsychicstudies. That's .uk, and that's based in the UK. So they can book sessions through there, or they can book session on my website. But whatever, either way, whatever's easier.
Yeah, incredible. And first of all, I wanted to thank the council for their incredible channeling through you as a vessel. That was beautiful. And thank you to your guides for their amazing service. And thank you, Anne, for joining me on my podcast, sharing your story, and giving us some incredible insight and knowledge and wisdom. So I really do appreciate you for coming here today.
You're more than welcome. It's been lovely meeting you too. And anyone out there who's listening to this, I hope it helps in some shape or form.
Beautiful. Well, take care, and I hope to see you again soon.